And welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show. And happy to be on here with you here on this wonderful Tuesday. Joined here again with my guy, Mr. Steel Chambers. So we got a ton of good stuff to get into. And yesterday was obviously a huge day with all the news of the Arthur Smith hiring. You know what? I always enjoy still seeing some of the reactions as people let it kind of sit in, sink in a little bit as to their responses. And initially, there's some people that were always going to be negative about it, and they looked and they said, "Hey, what has he done? Look at the offense he had in Atlanta. He was 7-10 3 years in a row. Look at the offense in Pittsburgh with everything that has happened." And I tried to sit there and look a little more and dive into what they did in Pittsburgh because people at Ohio State were getting upset with all of the 12 and 13 personnel Ohio State was ultimately running. And I think as I looked at this more with Pitt, like that was the team that they were trying to create. That was the offense that they had to run based upon the players that they had available to them. And as you know, being a player, like I always say this, like the best coaches are the ones that build the team. They build their scheme around what guys are good at and what they have available. And they didn't necessarily have a lot of great receivers. They had DK Metcalf. He was obviously suspended the last couple of games. You had a 42-year-old quarterback. And you had a running that was probably strengthy to be your tight ends. And they had I can't think of the guy, the dude from Georgia who was a monster. Big dude.
Washington.
Yes. Yeah. Because you were on that team, right?
We played them in the semifinal.
Yeah, so tell him, okay, so Washington, tell him, okay, I went down there to cover on media day. He was massive. Tell me a little bit about him, Steele, playing against that guy with just – because that was when they had him and Brock Bowers, going back and forth. Obviously, the really talented tight ends inside, you being a linebacker, being involved in some of the coverage with that. Talk a little bit about Washington there, and because now he's like 300 pounds. Looks like a tackle playing tight end, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, I mean, he was basically like 280 whenever we played him, but I was actually the guy that knocked him out of the game. I hurt his ankle a little bit, but at the cost of my shoulder. So after like the first half, he was out. He didn't play anymore, but just that one hit alone, I was able to get him down, but it felt like it took every single part of my body to actually get that man on the ground. Like it was I put everything I had into it, and he didn't really budge, but I guess his ankle kind of clicked a little bit, and now he was out of the game.
So, but he was huge. And so it wasn't
Massive.
just he was a receiving tight end, which is what Bowers was. So when you have a guy that's that big, you're able to then lean into him, which is a lot of what Pittsburgh did. I mean, he was like having an extra tackle on the field. So that's a guy that you want to kind of run behind.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, Georgia used them a lot, like the same way that Pittsburgh uses all their tight ends. They had Brock Bowers, Washington. They love doing play actions where they'll leak him out on a little tight end like OS play that I'm not allowed to say here, but they just love to utilize their tight ends a lot. That's what Pittsburgh does. And it's hard whenever you got a guy like Brock Bowers who runs like a 4.445, it seems like, and then a big tight end that's able to catch the ball. So that was just a hard combination to deal with on defense.
It was, and the old crap play, and tell where the guy, they kind of fall down. It's the play action. You don't realize exactly what's happening until they've ultimately caught the ball, and then behind you. And that's the old crap that ultimately comes from that. And so that's why I think still they leaned into that a little bit more. Is you have a guy who's kind of uniquely skilled to be able to do that. Now there aren't too many teams that have tight ends that are that big that have that type of skill set. So. Maybe you run a little 12 tight end personnel with 2 tight ends. Maybe, Ohio State's run some 13, but I don't see that being something that they're going to probably major in as much because, the tight end depth maybe isn't quite as good as it has been. Will Kazmarek moved on. Max Clare also went to the NFL draft. And then you also had Jelani Smith leave. So that room got a lot thinner this year. And while they added some guys in the portal and different things, I don't know that you're going to have that positional depth that may be a group that you lean into.
Yeah, and I mean, he's certainly going to adjust it. It was a different situation than with Pittsburgh, and you said it perfectly. The offense revolves around what you have and the personnel that you have on staff. So he's going to see the talent he has at running back and wide receiver, and I mean, he was in the NFL. He's going to be able to adjust, especially with an offseason, to get an idea of what kind of guys he has. He's going to adjust. He's going to come up with a game plan for the guys that he has, and it's going to be a solid offense.
So one of the other things is the scheme element. Just
Mm-hmm.
you played on both sides of the ball,
Mm-hmm.
getting a chance to hear offensive and defensive terminology. Obviously, you go to the NFL, a little bit different, just on the defensive side. But I would say the NFL is a scheme game. Like, you're not relying on just your guys to simply be better. Occasionally, you've got a guy that's, an elite wide receiver, maybe a running back you want to get in space, but you have to scheme that up to get those guys to one-on-one, because very few guys outside of maybe some Hall of Famers are able to beat double coverage. Talk a little bit about that, your experience going from college then to ultimately playing the NFL and realizing like the margins are so slim that I feel like any good coach in the NFL, they get to college and like, holy smokes, like not everybody's all that good. Whereas in the NFL, like everybody's almost at the same level.
Yeah, I mean, every single level you go up to, the talent just equates even more and more. The NFL is just the perfect example of that, where everyone's basically on the exact same playing field. In college, you can get away with it. You got Jeremiah Smith, who he's double coverage, but you could just toss it up to him in a 2-on-1. He's going to come down with the ball. And there's just more instances of players being able to take over in those games. And that kind of makes it a lot easier to not really scheme as much and just kind of run your plays and just trust your players to go beat guys that are across from them. Then the NFL, it's a lot less of that. It's, I got a scheme to get this guy open. I saw it a lot the other night with Jackson Smith and Jigba. It was just getting him in different spots, having him not get touched, and ultimately get off the line untouched and get open.
Oh, yeah. And like you said, you scheme those guys up. You saw what they did with Jackson. You saw the motions. You see the shifts. It's not like you just have an elite wide receiver and you just put him out wide and say, okay, he's here or he's in the slot. Because teams, they'll find ways to double to it. They'll find ways to make sure that they can run linebackers under, safeties over, whatever it is that you're ultimately going to do. And so I think Ryan Day, people will give the Arthur Smith the meh, whatever. I'm like, listen, those guys with what they're doing in the NFL, you're playing a little more chess than checkers. And that's why Ryan has been so good in college, is his ability to do that, because he came from the NFL and had to do that on a weekly basis. You get here, he's so good in the pass game. But one of the other pieces of it is that Arthur Smith, I think you go look at him, he came up, and it's crazy still because he's about my age. He came up largely through Tennessee, tight ends coach, run game coordinator, eventually becomes the OC. Ryan is great in the pass game. And he's good in the run stuff, and he knows it. But like Chip Kelly was elite in the run game. Like that's what he was. And I think Arthur Smith is kind of bringing some more of that run game element that this team needed this year. You watch the creativity of how they do it with different inserts, pulling. It's not just your zone, because in college, a lot of it still, I mean, outside of playing Michigan, most of those teams are just inside, outside zone. There wasn't a whole lot to it. You start getting to the next level, everybody runs those gap schemes. So it comes down to fits, what coverage you're in, and you can get teams to blow gaps. And that's why I think Arthur Smith really has majored in. And so you start talking about the marriage that's potentially going to happen there. I think that's a big deal.
I mean, yeah, they found the jelly to his peanut butter. With those guys together, I mean, with the combination of the run game and the pass game, they're naturally just going to bounce ideas off of each other. They got an entire offseason to do it. And ultimately, it's going to come down to a better offense. Anyone who's a little iffy about it, I just don't think that they've really dived into actually like his game plan, what he's able to present to a defense, because it's solid stuff. But like you said, personnel is different for every team has been on. With this personnel, having guys like Bo Jackson and then skill guys on the outside, it allows him to open it up. And Ryan Day is going to be able to help him with that and just build off of that pass game along with the run game that he already knows really well.
Yeah, that's it. It comes down to the marriage. One of the other guys they were talking about was Matt Nagy, who was with the Kansas City Chiefs. And, his ability, he's been with Andy Reid a long time. And here's one of the things. Everybody was looking at, Brian Daboll, and there's a lot of these names that are floating around with the NFL. And one thing that people didn't realize, like a lot of those guys were still playing or just finished up. And so the timeline still gets stretched a little bit. And I don't know if even 3 weeks ago that they would even had Arthur Smith in the consideration set, given the fact that he's coaching there under Mike Tomlin. And I mean, Pittsburgh said they weren't going to fire him. Mike Tomlin essentially resigned. So this was a guy that I don't even think they realized that they could have had until maybe a week and a half ago, And it was maybe down with him and Matt Nagy. They don't know if they wanted to wait so much for some of the other guys out there. And you make a choice, obviously, to go with Arthur Smith. And it was someone who still, if you would have probably asked midseason, like nobody was going anywhere in Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh doesn't turn coaches often.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that it was so far off the reservation as far as finding Arthur Smith for this job, it just means like how much Ryan Day really trusts him. Because I'm sure he had an entire list of guys that he was going to interview, that he was probably somewhat sure that he wanted for the job. And the fact that just out of left field, Arthur Smith just kind of comes into his lap coming out of Pittsburgh, that just shows that he trusts him and he trusts that he's going to be ultimately like a culture fit. Because that's a big part of it for Coach Day. Like he wants someone that's going to be tough, that's going to be rugged, and just present a solid run offense because that's what they want at Ohio State.
Well, I think also, too, he wanted to be in college. And, I mean, he had an opportunity. This was a guy that had been tied to some other NFL jobs, and there's still a handful of head jobs, which people had talked about that, head coaching opportunities that maybe he was involved with, coordinator positions for sure. But you start looking at his family, he's married, got a couple young kids. And one of the things that you can feel and get a sense with Ryan is that they've always been kind of a familiar group. Like he's done a good job of being about the family. And so coaches with younger kids or families that they want to be around that have always kind of gravitated towards this. And that's why I think Matt Patricia, has enjoyed this and liked this place so much is you can be a dad, you can be a husband here and be a football coach, where a lot of places they kind of, force you to be one or the other, and you can't necessarily be around nearly as much as you would like. And not that they don't work here, but Ryan having kids, like, hey, bring the families over. There's times where we're going to have our families here. We work really hard. And so while there's still, you start looking at the jobs that are open, Cleveland, hasn't been filled yet. Vegas ultimately hasn't been filled yet. Trying to think, is Tennessee, I think, they hired Saleh there. There's a handful. Buffalo has still not been filled. There's like 3 or 4 jobs that are still ultimately open. And he committed to Ohio State still prior to even any of those jobs closing up. And so to me, that speaks of a guy like, hey, I have confidence in Ryan. Also want to be in the college game as well.
Yeah, because I mean, Mike McDonald was saying earlier how he only sees his kid like a half hour every single week. And I mean, I'm not a dad, but I've got a dog. If I only see him for half an hour a week, I'm gonna get pissed. And then you look at Ohio State. I mean, it's basically like the Woody serves as a daycare with how many kids they got running around through there. I mean, I just can think of Lower Nice's kids running around 24/7, especially on Thursdays, whenever you have all the families and all the kids coming up and everyone's just hanging around having a good time. So that's definitely a huge thing. Just as a father, just outside of football, just being able to spend more time with your kids. If you're able to do that in college, then that just almost makes it a no-brainer. Like I can coach ball and then also be around and be present for my child. That's a no-brainer for me.
When you hear that a coach sees his kid a half hour a day or a half hour a week, not a day, how does that hit you, Steele? Like as someone, I mean, you're not married, you don't have any kids or anything yet, but is that, I mean, because different people have different opinions on it. Is that admirable? I mean, is that, some people say it's disgusting. I mean, there's probably somewhere in between, but how does that kind of hit you?
I mean, it sucks, but that kid's not going to be complaining whenever he has every single Game Boy game station he has in a pool out back. But it does suck. I mean, my dad, like, he would travel for work, but I'd see him on the weekends and then, like, on Fridays, and that's 3 days right there. So thinking about only seeing him for 30 minutes a week, I mean, it certainly sucks, and he's at an age where he has no understanding of why is daddy gone. But ultimately, he's going to understand it once he comes of age. It's going to suck for a little bit, but there's going to be an understanding somewhere down the road as far as dad is sacrificing his time to ultimately make our lives a lot better.
It's tough for the kid. How does that hit you for the dad, doing that, giving that up? And because some people think, we've swung a little bit back and forth, is always grind for your family, whether you're there or not, as long as I'm providing them opportunity. Then now it's shifted a little more culturally, like, hey, you want to be there and be around your kids, especially as a dad. I mean, there is a happy medium. There's a balance that you can get. And I know I've heard Ryan talk about this. He's like, there is no 50-50. It's 100-100. He's like, I'm never going to be able to spend as much time with my family as I want. But when I'm there, they get 100% of my attention. And when I'm at work, I give it 100% there. And you're missing thing is they're getting older. But, do you think – let me ask you this. Do you think it's absolutely necessary? Because now that you've been around college, you've been through the NFL, you see how some of this works, that it's absolutely necessary for people to spend that much time there.
I mean, Seahawks are in the Super Bowl.
I love it.
So it's working. I mean, he's grinding, and obviously, like, it's paying off. But maybe there's a happy medium where he's still in the Super Bowl, but he's upping it to 3 hours a week. But I mean, he's passionate in what he does. It makes it a little better that I'm pretty sure it's only like a baby or a toddler, so he hasn't even developed his frontal cortex, whatever it's called. So he's going to have really no memory that dad's gone. So I guess it's sort of a good time, but maybe there's a happy medium he can find, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll see, because it's interesting with that. I mean, Kurt Signetti, I heard him talking obviously at the end of the season, and Ryan's a lot like this. He gives his coaches a lot of autonomy. Coach really hard, get your crap done, recruit at a high level. As long as your guys are doing well, like, I'm going to give you the leeway to make sure how you do your job. And whether sometimes that's, there's days you're in there the whole time. There's other days like, hey, if you can slip out, you've got all your stuff done, you feel good about your game plan, you've got your recruiting on all taken care of, like, then you know what, we're going to give you a little bit of grace. You go figure it out, and it's not the biggest deal ultimately in the world. So I think that there is a little bit of a happy medium. I know coaches sometimes like to be in there just to be in there. There's the art of being busy. And so, but don't ever, I tell Schlegs this, and he loves it, don't ever confuse activity with achievement. So just because you're in there doesn't mean still like you're actually are you getting more stuff done? I always ask the coaches, like, what did you do? Like, I worked here till midnight. Was there maybe like 3 or 4 15-minute blocks or like 20-minute blocks that you could have been more efficient throughout the day instead of doing this or doing that or wasting time, that you could have been more efficient so you could have gotten out of there and cut an hour off or maybe an hour and a half? Like, I feel like that's all a possibility that's there for you. But that's neither here nor there. We were talking about some of the Buckeye, the loss you had the Georgia game over in the Peach Bowl. How tough that was. Got a lot of recruiting news that I want to get to with some of the stuff with Darian Mensah, what they happened at Duke, what the situation is ultimately with Clemson and Luke Farrelly, and how that's shaking out with his poaching to Ole Miss and what Dabo said. But you brought up that point, that Georgia game. I want to talk about some of the losses that Ohio State's had here the last, last couple of seasons, who they've lost to and what that ultimately looks like and what that kind of says. So we'll break that down here next. First, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. You know how fast the NFL game days move. One big play, everything changes. That's why live betting on FanDuel is a game changer. With FanDuel, you can bet in real time while the game unfolds. Score just flipped, jump on a new spread, or ride the live money line. That receiver's heating up. Bet on the next touchdown score or total yards. Think that drive stalls in the red zone. Take a live field goal prop or fade the total. Live player props, team totals, drive results, updated spreads, next play markets. It's all there. It's fast. It's easy. And with FanDuel, your live bets move as quickly as the game does. So whether you're riding the momentum or fading the hype, FanDuel puts you right in the middle of every moment. Visit FanDuel.com/bigplay to download the app and bet the NFL live all season long. Must be 21 older and present in Ohio, 21 older and present in Pennsylvania. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. More of the Bobby Carpenter Show coming up next. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer-flavored beer. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and we talked about that Georgia loss. Toss that up there, Pat. Some of the losses the Buckeyes have had the last few years. You start looking 2025, Indiana, Miami, both play in the Natty. 2024, Michigan, which that was a bad loss. Of all of these, the
Yeah.
2024 loss, that's the one where like this is an average Michigan team. They were great where Ohio State struggled on the interior of that offensive line. And they had lost to Oregon earlier in that season out Knotson in a bang situation where, Will doesn't get a chance to slide and get down in time and move or stop the clock and have a chance for at least a field goal at the end. The Missouri game and the Cotton Bowl where everybody opted out.
Oh.
Michigan won the Natty that year, so that's not the end of the world. You'd like to have won it, but you have them to the last play of the game. Get to that Georgia game. They won the Natty. They smoked Washington, and then Michigan, who was the 2 seed in the playoffs ultimately that year. When you start looking at those, outside of that Michigan game from 24, is there one still that's the most painful you think on that list?
I mean, the 23 and 22 Michigan games, that was tough. And then Missouri, yeah, players opting out. We had a lot of people not playing in that game. And then that was one of those situations where Devin Brown went down like the first or second play.
Yeah.
Lincoln came in. He had no snaps on the entire year, so he was just struggling to get his feet kind of wet and everything. And Missouri had a great defense. And it was one of those things where it was a 3-and-out, punt the ball, defense holds, 3-and-out, punt the ball, defense holds. And then sooner or later, battlefield position came in. And the dam just broke, and that was a hard game to play in.
Yeah, that was tough. So was that your senior year then?
That was my last game. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, so you very personal with that because you talked about defense hold, dam just broke, and it's like you, Tommy, you had a lot of veteran guys out there who played really hard.
No, Tommy didn't play in that one.
Oh, Tommy, did he have his wrist? Was he have his shoulder? What was he?
Who knows with that guy? It was something.
I know didn't he have wrist issues? I remember watching him in the Michigan game, I think, and he was having a hard time wrapping.
I think it was his wrist.
Yeah, so you had guys recovering from injuries. Because Tommy wasn't a guy just to kind of opt out and not play. His wrist was pretty jacked when it came to that. But Lincoln, I mean, and you were a guy getting tossed in there. I mean, Lincoln, and I think people unfairly kind of judged Lincoln because they're talking about the quarterback competition with Julian, like, look at him, in the Missouri game. I know that's the only time that you saw him, but I mean, the guy was a true freshman who had no experience and behind an offensive line that was shaky to say the least. And I mean, that it was overwhelmed. Like he wasn't prepared just to be able to do it because he wasn't ready at that stage of his career, but then he had nobody else around him as well. And it felt like that kind of stuck with him still when people would kind of look and talk about him for a number of years.
It sucks because, I mean, first impressions matter, and that sadly was his first impression, but he was a true freshman. He had never played at all. The Missouri defense, they were talked about throughout the entire year. Like, that was a solid group. And like you said, like a shaky offensive line, he didn't have a lot of his weapons. It was just overall just a tough situation to be thrown into. And of course, like he's gotten better throughout the years, but he hasn't really had the opportunity to go out and show it like in a real life, like game on the line situation. So everyone just goes back to his first like real playing time against Missouri. And that sucks because, I mean, he's a hell of a player. I wish he stayed, but ultimately he's going to do very well at Louisville and he's going to kill it.
How good of an athlete is Lincoln? Because you're a guy, I try to tell people, but you actually competed against him and did the drills with him, watched him run, ran with him, all those things.
I mean, it's like he had his basketball tape whenever he was coming in. That got Cade going because he loves basketball players. He was the 3-hole hitter for our slow pitch softball league in the summer, and we had to tell him to stop hitting home runs because there was a home run limit. He killed it in the home run derby and the charity game, and just everything he does, every single bat, tool, like golf club he picks up, he excels at. And all that aside, he's also a fantastic quarterback and he can run. So like I love the dude so much. I wish I had more time with him because he's one of my favorite people I've had at Ohio State.
And beyond all that, like you said, favorite people, like he's a really good dude too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like just a ray of sunshine, like sunshine from Remember the Titans. He's basically him.
Yeah, that's good because I always really enjoyed Lincoln, and it's tough, and this is kind of how it works now in today's day and age in college football. But I think I told people, I go buy stock in Lincoln Kienholz. Him going to Louisville, And when he left, I go, buddy, you got everything you need to be able to go and play at the next level. Just it's going to be up to you to continue to develop it and continue to get better. But he was a guy that had a ton of athleticism. One other game that was on that list that we talked earlier about, that Georgia game, you guys were coming off that Michigan loss.
Mm-hmm.
You get into the CFP and you're playing Georgia, and that was their second title in a row, I want to say. They won a year before. So everybody knew how good they were. They were loaded. Stetson Bennett came back. What was that game like in the preparation for you guys after having to sit and stew on that loss, no Big Ten championship, and everything else that came with it?
It was probably the most locked in I've seen the team my entire time there. I know once we got selected, JT, or even before selection day, JT was very adamant about being vocal, saying like, stay ready during those practices where we didn't know what our future was. And then once we were selected and we saw we were going to play Georgia, the defending national champions, everyone just kind of locked in, realized like, okay, this is our time to go out. We beat Georgia. We could possibly see Michigan right afterwards. Like, we can change the history that we've set for ourselves. And we thought that was going to happen, and things didn't go our way.
Oh yeah, you get the non-targeting on Marvin knocks him out of the game, who was playing absolutely tremendous. CJ played really tough in that game and scrambled a lot more than I think people had thought he could do. And maybe not the greatest athlete in the world. I mean, he's not Lincoln, but a functional runner. And you guys were so close. It comes down ultimately to that final field goal. And you look at Ryan's careers. There's that, the Indiana game, Michigan game last year. I feel like the kicker position maybe hasn't been up to Ohio State's standard here in the last handful of years.
Yeah, I mean, they've definitely been shaky in big-time situations, but I won't put it all on the kicker in that situation. There are multiple plays where we could have done some things differently to change the outcome of that game. One thing that haunts me a little bit, the fourth down conversion that Brock Bowers had, we were in man coverage, and we were going to change it to zone. Our call was white, and we were talking all around everything, and I never got the call out to Denzel. So he should have been out there whenever they threw it to the flat. It was probably going to be a pick or likely a stop. And I didn't get the call out to him. I thought he already had it, but that's on me. I got to talk a little more. And they got the fourth down. They gained some momentum after that, scored, and that ended up kind of sealing the deal. So,
yeah, I've never heard that before. I remember that play as they were starting to get some drives going and get some things going, and that's interesting. That's very interesting.
That one's on me. I never got the call out to. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking like we went over this 10 or 12 times in practice. Like, if they shift into a condensed formation, like we're going to go to white. But I just wasn't vocal enough. I didn't get it out to him, and he thought we were still in man, and it hurt us.
Yeah, it's tough. It's amazing the things you remember. You probably couldn't remember any of your good plays. Did you have a pick in that game or a tie?
I had a pick.
You did have a pick. Yeah, as you say, early in the game, if it was it first half, I want to say earlier.
Yeah, it was a running back, like little pipe route. They run it a bunch.
Yeah, that's nice. So like that, let me ask you this as a player, and then we'll take a quick break. Which play do you remember more? The fact that when you came off the field after that fourth down and they moved the ball, obviously, or do you remember the interception more?
No, the fourth down play. It's not even close.
Yeah. And that's the worst parts of humanity. Like I'll always remember, and I was just curious because I could vividly describe the plays I didn't make. Someone's like, well, remember this one? It's like, I really don't remember it that much. Like I can watch it, but I don't have like the visual cues because it didn't sting as bad as the one that obviously you didn't make. And that sucks. Sorry for dragging some of that up. Still, you were a part of some of those tough losses, but I mean,
it's fun, man. It's history. I was a part of it.
It is. It's the history, and it's part of the stories, man. It tells the story of your time there and the program. So we're going to take a quick break. I want to get into this recruiting stuff because there's a lot of wild things going on in the ACC with how this is structured. And we'll probably talk a lot about this the rest of the week because there's still going to be some news on it and what's going to ultimately happen. So we're going to take a quick break here. Well, first, I want to tell you about our friends over at XSport. Parents and athletes, protect what matters most with XSport mouthguards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. XSport mouthguards, they're scientifically tested to help absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. They feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber. They custom print that bad boy with 3D technology right to your grill for more protection, better performance, max comfort, and clear communication so you can focus on your game, not your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Go visit exportguards.com/Bobby today and save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. More of the Bobby Carpenter Show coming up next. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. Welcome back into the program. And still, I don't know how close, I don't follow recruiting all that much with this portal stuff. It's some of the things that are going on. It's crazy. And, Strikes Night outlined some of the stuff that happened before with the Damon Williams situation out of Washington. And they're trying to get him down to LSU. And then apparently they realize, man, they have to buy out his whole deal. It's going to be a mess. It'll be ultra expensive. So he ultimately returns to Washington. And, it's interesting of how that'll impact it. And let me ask you this, because I never played an era with NIL, and you were at the front end of it towards the end of your career. If you're a quarterback, if CJ, let's say his senior year, final year, is there, signs a deal, everybody thinks he's going to be there, and then you hear about him going to leave and get a ton of money somewhere else, all right, that's kind of messed up, but then it doesn't happen, and then he has to come back. How does that impact the structure of a team and how you see him?
That impacts it severely because he's supposed to be your leader in the locker room and your leader on the field. And if he's showing signs of leaving, that just shows maybe he doesn't believe in the team as far as getting to the national championship. Maybe he's leaving us for money, which honestly I think would sting more. But that's your leader, and the fact that he's showing signs of faltering and almost committing mutiny, that's not going to sit well with me.
Would you be able to put that aside? It's happened, let's say it happened, a month ago. By the time you get to the start of the season, do you think guys would have faith in him again?
He would need to do a lot to really gain trust, especially with me. But I think if he's able to walk in front of a team, explain exactly what happened, and of course, at place at Ohio State, everyone loved you before. They're going to love you after, but there's still going to be a little bit of just pissed offness. But if he stands up in front of you like a man, tells you exactly how it is, says, I'm back, I'm striving to get this team to the national championship, then things are going to end up working out.
So the other side of that is the Darian Mensah situation, who was the quarterback at Tulane, had a lot of success there. Last year, Duke pays him, gets in the portal, pays him to come to Duke. That's just how college football works now. They put him on a 2-year deal. I don't know what they pay him the first year. I was under the impression this year was around $4 million. Maybe it was that both years. Miami doesn't have a quarterback. Yeah, exactly, Steele. That's a lot of money. Listen, and that's why I give these guys, I don't treat them – I always would call a lot of the players kids. Dude, you're not a kid. You're talking about signing your name as an 18-plus-year-old adult, and when that's tied to 7-figure compensation, you want to be treated like adult. Well, then these are adult problems that you ultimately have. And he had signed his deal. There's a couple hours left in the portal, and reportedly he hops in. Miami's going to pay him, I don't know, a boatload of cash, tons of money to go down to Miami. Well, here's the thing. He'd already signed a deal. And, Miami's coming in trying to tamper and ultimately, keep him from or lure him out. Duke wasn't going to put him in the portal. It gets to court. They eventually do. And I guess today they just reached a settlement. Now, that probably just means they're getting paid, but, is Duke in a good enough situation with their quarterback? Probably not. Probably not, because they'd rather just have their guy that they had agreed to pay and bring him in there. And what's amazing to me is the fact that they never the fact that Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, like he never got involved. Like this is an ACC issue, like within the conference. It's not something that's cross conference where you have to get multiple people involved. That he never got into that, and so apparently they reached a settlement today. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll dive into some more of that in our headlines with Steele coming up here next. But I want to tell you about our friends over at BackerBCKR.com, Elite Fan Gear. You want to check it out. Founded to make the best quality fan gear out there. Their products are the best stuff. I've got a windbreaker. We'll have to get you something here.
Dude, that looks good on you right there.
Oh yeah, we'll have to get you some of the gear, dude. It looks good. It feels good. They got windbreakers, winter coats, rain coats, everything you need. They got some hats. They've got adding colors. It's all there. It looks good. It's like the high quality. I know you're a guy, play a little golf, like that nice golf gear. That's what it looks like. That's how it feels. So you're going to really love it. You go to BackerBCKR.com right now. Use promo code all caps Bobby. It's an additional 20 or 10% off. So go check them out. Get your Buckeye gear. They got some other teams too, but get the gear for the Bucks. Take a quick break. Coming up next, we're going to continue to break down that Darian Mensah situation and what this portal combat means for college football. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. Welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. Now we got our headlines, college football headlines. They're brought to you by our friends over at Smart Choice Baths. It's the perfect time to remodel your bathroom. Right now, Smart Choice Baths is giving you up to $1,250 off your bathroom projects, plus a free luxury upgrade to add comfort and style. Just for Big Play listeners, will save an additional 10% on your product. So don't wait. Visit them at smartchoicebaths.com or give them a call at 844-GET-SMART. to schedule your free consultation today. Smart Choice Baths, where luxury meets affordability. So I'm laying all that out for you, Steele. I mean, you got a guy under contract, going to leave. He's going to ultimately go to Miami. It looks like Duke is probably going to get a lot of cash. But the problem is, at this point in time, I tell people, like, there's no quarterback that you can go there and get to solve this problem. Like, that inherently becomes the issue. So you could have all the money in the world. If you're on a deserted island, there's nowhere to spend it. So I don't know who they ultimately pick up. And I think they did grab a quarterback, a couple of weeks ago, but not to the quality of a guy like Darian Mensah. And this is something that, and they've got to find a way. This isn't just talking and tampering and pulling guys off of another team, which we'll get to that Ole Miss stuff. We might have to kick it to tomorrow. But this is something where guys have signed a deal, and now they want to ultimately leave and go somewhere else.
So, like, how is this working? Because in my mind, I'm thinking you signed a deal. Like, how are they making it almost like null and void, where they can just straight up leave and go somewhere else? Because that's not how it works in the real world.
Well, you're telling me, Steele. You're in the real world now, but these guys don't understand that. A lot of these NIL deals originally were so one-sided, like the stuff that you probably got involved with, like there was no teeth in it. Well, now since they have the revenue share and some of it come from the school, a lot of the Big Ten agreements have had some teeth in them where there's big buyouts and things like that if you ultimately want to leave. But I don't know. Like, and that's the thing, like these guys, like they're not learning any life lessons because you can't do that once you go to the next level in the NFL.
No, not at all. At this point, there needs to be like a CBA or something where they're signing, where the university is the employer and the player is the employee, because they're student athletes, but it's gotten to a point where it's too late. We got to start treating them like just straight up laborers, because that's what they are. I mean, they're making multi-millions of dollars. There's got to be some kind of more concrete way of signing these guys and making sure, like, if they sign for 2 years, they're staying for 2 years, because that's just how it works. I mean, there's a loyalty aspect to it, and then there's just like a real life, like, lessons aspect to it, where you can't just tear up the paper, go somewhere else and pretend like you never signed that contract. Because if you want these guys to learn lessons, which is a big part of college, you got to make them realize that if you sign for 2 years, like you are committing yourself for 2 years. So they're just not helping them in the long run, I think, with like actually like life.
Well, and the thing is, Dario Mensah probably, when he left Tulane and Duke offered him a 2-year deal, and I don't know what the first year is. Second year is $4 million. Let's just, for argument's sake, say it's 4 and 4. He probably never thought like, hey, after I play my first year there, someone's going to pay me more than $4 million. So he wanted to take that security steal. Like that money was basically guaranteed. So if he blew out his knee or, tore his Achilles or so, that just generally plays bad, he was still going to get paid. So he wants the security and the upside, and like you can't really have both.
It's greedy, man. That's just pure greed right there. I mean, I'm taking the 4 million. I don't care if they want me to have 5 million. Like I'm not going to be too greedy. I'm 19 years old and I've got $8 million in the bank minus taxes and everything. Like I'm going to take that. I don't know.
Minus tax. So it's funny that you bring the tax thing into it. So I mean, I never had to pay tax in college. I didn't have a job. I didn't earn any money. So did you guys have to go through and do all your tax filings and everything? Like every year, like once you started getting like some little NIL stuff and everything, like how did that work?
We had our little ace in the hole, Ed Brown. He helped us with a lot of the tax stuff because I mean, we just didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah. So you had somebody that would take care of that for you because I mean, dude, I know way more now, but I'm also going to be 43. When I was 25, I didn't know anything about that. And so these guys, they all elicit help then to be able to handle all that.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I was a finance major, but a lot of guys, like they just don't even understand the concept of taxes. And I mean, we had guys coming in multiple times throughout the entire year to explain taxes and saving your money and not just spending it all in one place. And there's still situations where guys are falling into that trap and not realizing, hey, like Uncle Sam's going to come knocking in April. You got to have this amount of money ready. So luckily, like I understand a little bit about money. I had guys like Ed Brown in my corner that was able to file my taxes while I was there. But now that the money's kind of ramping up a little bit, I feel like the NCAA should step in and like make it more knowledgeable, like how important it is to pay those taxes and to just file them and understand like what's going on.
I said, especially when you start talking, I mean, your guys' stuff when you got in, it was all, some 5-figure, 6-figure stuff, maybe for high-end guys. Now you're talking about things in the millions. And
yeah,
those tax dollars are big, and it's definitely a lot different than it was. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We have our tailgate talk coming up next. We answer your questions, comment on some of the stuff you've been throwing in the chat. So, folks, we're excited. Throw some questions in here, what you want to hear myself, or maybe even Steele, because, listen, he's the novelty on here. He's the new dude. Get his opinion about everything. We'll get that here coming up next. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, coming back in here as we one more second before we have Steele wrap the show up, which I'm excited to kind of hear his parting thoughts and everything. It was still, this is their first week back with like actual hardcore lifting. There we go. They didn't like they oozed in, and they had yesterday off because the snow was so significant. They had level 3 snow emergency. I was giving Schlegs crap. I'm like, are we trying to win anymore? Like, what are we doing? Like Urban used to always say, at all costs. And a year for Urban, correct?
No.
Okay, so he had left. He recruited you, and then Ryan, that was his first year. So he had a sign on the door that used to say at all costs. And I'm like, whatever happened to that? Like, just get the guys in here and ultimately get them going. What was that for? Did you come in? You were a mid-year guy, right? You came in December?
No, I came in the summer.
Okay, so yeah, nobody does that anymore still. Well, so your first workouts at Ohio State in that offseason, what were those like?
It sucked. I thought the warm-up was a workout. We were 45 minutes into the warm-up. I mean, we were running around. We had stick in hand, doing all these things. I was twirling a couple times. I thought I was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And like I'm gassed. And then all of a sudden, Coach Mick, like he starts setting stuff up. Like there's more. But yeah, like we had just warmed up. Like now we're gonna start like revving up a little bit. And he had told us beforehand that we were gonna ease into it, and that was his version of easing into it. So I was terrified after that.
Yeah, the warm up definitely it lulls guys to sleep because it's going on for so long. And I was watching them out there doing it today, and it's nice because they start tightening it up and it gets a little shorter. But at the beginning, they want it to be perfect. They're going through it all, and that warm up is 40 minutes. So I think some of those guys think they're like, hey, we're done. This is all it's going to be. And still, I've watched them bring in guys before where they literally were done. Kenny Parker, Coach Parker was in there. He's like, they can't do anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? Like they couldn't even do like the band pull parts. They're bending their arms. It's like, dude, straight arm. Like it's a straight arm exercise. He's like, they're gassed. Like gassed from what? The warm up outside?
Yeah, but like now, like once I got to my senior year, like I needed that. Like I needed that time to get my body ready. So it was just funny, like how as soon as I got on, I thought that was the actual like workout. And then once I'm getting to my 5th year, I'm like, okay, I might need like an extra 5 minutes to actually get loose. So it was just funny, like how that kind of changed.
Yeah. That's funny. Someone put in here, Matthew Miller in the chat said they should have brought in Trinidad Chambliss to Columbus. We would have won it all for sure. This is what I love is the revisionist history on some of this. And it's a little bit like Fernando Mendoza, who came from Cal. It's like nobody really was recruiting him that heavily out of the portal. No. Like Trinidad Chambliss came from Ferris State. He was a kid that played in Western Michigan where they don't have great high school football. He goes to Ferris State and he wins. And now all of a sudden, because he went to Ole Miss, who, by the way, he wasn't even the starter to start the season.
No.
And then all of a sudden, then people now are like, man, everybody should have got him. Well, if everybody knew, I guarantee you someone would have offered him. Lane, they probably would have offered him more than they did just to make sure they got him. But that's this revisionist history still where everybody looks back on it. Especially because you probably played with some guys who, maybe they were highly recruited and they didn't pan out all that well. Maybe they weren't all that highly recruited, ended up becoming really good players. But that's all part of the risk. Like nobody knows all that really at the time.
I mean, like hindsight, that's a fantastic superpower because, I mean, ultimately he was a diamond in the rough. No one had any idea of him. If Simmons didn't get hurt early on, we probably wouldn't have this story of Chambliss being able to just like kind of push through those limits and be the quarterback he is. So like if he comes to Ohio State, there's a good chance that he would have started behind Julian Sayin. And if Sayin doesn't get hurt, then he's just kind of a nobody at the end of the day. So it's better that he went to Ole Miss, made a name for himself, because I think if he went to Ohio State, no one would know who he is.
Well, and that's the thing, that's like it's easy money. He won big at Ferris State. There's a lot of guys that are really good Division II players. It doesn't mean still they're going to be great guys at not even Division I, but you're talking high level, like top 15, top 10, to where he's running around and doing that. Like, listen, I give Lane a lot of credit. They found him. They developed him. He got better as the season went on. But to have any idea of that, like, it's fool's gold. I mean, you could recruit 20 of those guys, and none of them would ultimately turn out. And then people are saying, well, why aren't you going with the big name guys? So, who knows? You'll never make everyone happy. You try to do the best you can. E. Rogers put in Tony Romo. Tony Romo went to a 1AA school at Eastern Illinois. He was an undrafted free agent. He sat for 3.5 years before he ultimately got a chance to start. Like it wasn't like he came in and set the world on fire his rookie year. Like the only reason they kept him is because Sean Payton went to Eastern Illinois and Parcells thought he had a chance. We'll get into that. Okay, people have named Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco started at Pitt, and he got beat out by Tyler Palco. He transferred then to Delaware State or Delaware, one of the two. Doug Williams, all right, I'll accept that. Dante Culpepper, okay. Those two guys. But still, they've named like four. The people have named like 3 guys. There's 32 starters every year and a lot of dudes to choose from. All right, we're getting long in this. I want to come back because I want to hear Steele's parting thoughts or side nuggets or whatever he's going to call it. You can pick the name as we wrap up the show here on this Tuesday. I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink Garage Beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer. All right, still the floor is yours. You got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Oh God, it's a long time. Okay.
Maybe just as much as you or little as you want. You got it.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go with a little lesson that Mendoza was telling people after the national championship, and it's about stoicism. It's a Greek Roman philosophy popularized by Socrates. If you know who that is, I read books. I don't know if you do, but it's the idea that the goal in life is to continuously gain and attain wisdom. And you do that by striving to do things that make you more virtuous and just a better person overall. And a lot of times there's going to be up and downs in life, but it's sort of just putting that all aside and focusing on that next step, continuously moving forward towards that virtuous life that you're trying to attain. And there's just a bunch of other lessons with it, but that's the overall message. Keep moving forward. There's going to be ups and downs in life, but put your head down. Don't get too down. Don't get too high, and just keep chugging. And your life ultimately is going to be what you want it to be.
I love it. Stoicism. That is the answer. And that is today's message from our guy, Steel Chambers. Stay locked in. We'll catch up tomorrow on the Bobby Carpenter Show.